Hey, all you cats and kittens, it's your boy Brant here to tear you away from another episode of Tiger King. And my fellow creatives, can I just say this straight up front? Do we not love a hot mess? Do we not love a crazy hot mess of a show? Don't lie to me. I know you. But that's not what we're here to talk about today. What we are going to talk about today is the undiscovered truth to designing on purpose. But before we get there, what I really want to know is this: where are you tuning in from? I would love to know where you're tuning in from. So in the comments, just go ahead and let us know. Are you in Albuquerque? Are you tuning in from Sheboygan, Wisconsin? I love saying that word. Maybe you're tuning in from Worcester, back home for me, up in New England, right? Where all the designers are wicked smart. Is that where you are? Go ahead and hit. I see Scottsdale. I see some Florida in there. Yeah, fantastic. Well, we are glad that you are here. Welcome to the Conscious Creators Series, sponsored by Milliken Floors. And I am thrilled that you are here with me today. My name is Brant Menswar, and I'm going to be your host over the next couple of episodes where we talk about what it takes to truly design on purpose. So my first question for you is, when you hear the phrase on purpose, what do you think of? What does that mean to you? If you're doing something on purpose, what are you doing? I believe it's the goal of every designer to design on purpose. So, if it's the goal to design on purpose, how do we get there? What does that actually mean to you? For a lot of people, it's tough to put your finger on. It really is. It's hard to really understand and know what your purpose is. So if you're doing something on purpose, my guess is that you would probably say you're being intentional. You're being intentional with your decisions. So if that's what it means, if you are being intentional with your design, I still don't know what that means for you. Because if you're being intentional, my next question that I'm going to have for you is, if you're being intentional, what are you being intentional about? And how are you actually being intentional? I think that that's where the real challenge starts if you truly want to design on purpose. So the first thing that I need you to do for me is I need you to sort of reset your brain, if you could. And what I really want you to do is I want you to shift away from the idea that doing something on purpose means you're being intentional to doing something that is in alignment with your purpose. And so if that is the definition that we are going to go by, how do we get there? Well, I think that the truth is that for many of us, the idea of knowing or finding our purpose, as we've heard our whole lives, you got to go out, you got to find your purpose. The real truth is this: you don't find purpose. You choose purpose. And so when we understand that it's a choice, we can move away from just assuming that being or designing on purpose is something that we do intentionally, to understanding that we have to choose our purpose in order to be in alignment with it. So how do we do that? Well, it really is the number one challenge, I think, to every designer I've ever met. And as a creative myself, as coming from the music business and as a songwriter, being creative is incredibly important, and doing things in alignment with the things that matter most to me is really important, especially if I want to write an authentically original song. But as a designer, how do you know that you're creating something original if you don't know what your purpose is? Because you can't do anything on purpose unless you know what your purpose actually is. So let me talk a little bit about how we get there, because the number one challenge that I find for most of us is this. We don't know what our purpose is. And when you don't know what your purpose is, you're winging it. You're winging it. And the toughest part about that truth, about that fact, is if indeed you're winging it, which as a control freak, I will tell you is really, really tough to accept. The truth is, when you're winging it, you only have two things that can come from that. Number one, you're going to be a cover artist, or at best, you're going to become an unconscious creator. So, what does that exactly mean? Well, if you're winging it, as most of us are, because we haven't defined those things in our lives that matter most to us, so how can we possibly engage in the things that we simply have never discovered? We end up winging it. Now, interesting enough, the term winging it comes from the theater. I don't know if you knew that or not. Around 1900, there was this big boom in American population. And we started to build all these playhouses here in America. And we had a shortage of actors. So when an actor got sick or an actor got hurt, someone had to fill in an emergency. And so what they would do is they'd show up to the theater, they'd go off into the wings of the theater, and they would frantically try to memorize lines so that they could walk out and perform the role that they weren't prepared to perform. That's where the term winging it actually comes from. But we've taken something that was used as an emergency and we have somehow adopted it as a way of life. And I know you might be thinking to yourself, I'm really not good at winging it, but I have to tell you that the data says that we are overwhelmingly successful at winging it in our lives. We are still here. We have had the success that we have had thus far while we haven't been doing anything on purpose without defining those things that matter most. And so while we're winging it, your choices are cover artist. And what I mean by cover artist, just like in the music world, you're playing covers all day long. You're doing other people's songs, other people's music. And in the design world, you're simply copying other people's design. You're allowing that to influence you in such a way that you haven't really found your voice yet, your own original voice. I like to call it your oeuvre. You haven't found that yet. So what you do is you rely on all these influences coming as a cover artist, or if you can get past that, the best you're going to be able to get is to become an unconscious creator, where you're just sort of designing and you're sort of influenced by everything, but you're not really doing anything with deliberate intention. You're not doing anything on purpose. So how do we stop from winging it? That's the real question. How do we stop from winging it? Well, I'm going to suggest the way that we stop from winging it is by identifying what I like to call our black sheep values. Now, I don't know if you guys know this or not. For the last 18 months or so, I have been traveling around doing my talks and asking this question to tens of thousands of people. And my question is this: do you know why farmers don't value black sheep like the rest of the flock? Now, if you're like me, over the last, I don't know how many decades I've been alive, 4 decades at least, I have always been under the impression that being a black sheep was a bad thing, was being an outcast of some kind. But the truth, when I really dug into it, blew me away. And to be honest with you, there is so much power, acceptance, and fuel in this answer, in the real truth, the undiscovered truth that I can't wait to tell you. And this is what it is. The reason that farmers don't value black sheep like the rest of the flock is because a black sheep's wool cannot be dyed. Every black sheep is 100% authentically original. Now, I like to believe that we all possess these black sheep values, these 5 or 6 things in your life that no matter what people say to you, no matter how much they try to influence you, no matter how much they try to change or twist it into something that it's not, you simply cannot and will not be moved. Those are your black sheep values. Those are what make you an original. And that is the secret to what we're talking about, this undiscovered idea that identifying your black sheep values allows you to become the original that you were made. But even more importantly, it allows you to become a conscious creator of your own reality. That is the goal for where we want to get to. And it's what we're going to really talk about over the next 2 or 3 sessions, right? The goal for everybody, every designer here, is to be a conscious creator, to design on purpose. But that means you have to identify the what. I know you've heard you need to start with why. I know you have. But I have to be honest with you. Starting with why often leads to getting the wrong purpose. Because if we want to have an accurate purpose, we have to start with what? What are your non-negotiables? What are those things that no matter what someone says to you will not change? Those are your black sheep values. How do you get there? You know, becoming a conscious creator is incredibly powerful. It's the idea that if someone didn't know that you were the creator of a specific work, could they take your name off of it and still know that it's yours? That is what being a conscious creator is all about. That originality is what defines who you are. It's what you were meant for. It's who you were designed to be. But so many of us ignore that because it's easier to wing it. It's easier to be unconscious creators. You see, my band Big Kettle Drum, hold for applause. Yes. We were sort of Mumford & Sons before Mumford & Sons existed, right? And we recorded our last record called I Thought You'd Be Bigger out in Los Angeles. And we recorded about 1.5 years ago. And as we were out there recording, we had this amazing experience. We got to record with Bob Dylan's band. It was incredible. Absolutely incredible. But we drove out there to make sure we had all of our own gear from Central Florida all the way out to LA. So when we finished after a week's worth of recording, we're driving back across the country to get back home. It's about 6 o'clock in the morning. We cross over the New Mexico border. The sun's coming up. There's really not another car on the road. And all of a sudden, I see blue lights in my rearview mirror. So I turn and I look at JT, my bandmate, and I'm like, dude, what's going on? I wasn't speeding. Do we have a taillight out? Did we let the drummer out of the trunk? What is it? Why am I being pulled over? So I pull off to the side of the road and the cop comes up to the window and he says, do you know you were traveling in the left-hand lane? And I'm like, so? And he goes, well, it's against the law in this state to travel in the left-hand lane unless you're passing. And I said, look, I'm from Florida. We don't have any laws when it comes to driving. We go wherever we want to. And he snickered a tiny bit. And he let me off with a warning. And I got into that right-hand lane and I drove all the way back to Florida. The gist of the story is this. I was being intentional. I knew my destination. I had to get back to Florida. I had to get back home. I knew that's where I was going. But I wasn't being deliberate with my intention because I was oblivious to the rules that exist. I did not know that. Because once you know the rules, you have to make an active choice to break the rules. And we've been conditioned to follow rules. It's why we don't take the time to discover these things that make us an original, because they become part of the rules of being us. And so if you tell me that health is one of your black sheep values, and the alarm goes off at 5 o'clock in the morning, ding, 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 and you reach over and swat it off the shelf and say, not today, Satan, then I have to look at you and go, is health really one of your black sheep values? Well, we don't want to have to ask ourselves that question. And so we continue to stay oblivious to our own rules. And instead, we wing it. Well, that's never going to bring you the type of transformation in your professional or personal life that I think we all have a yearning for. I really do. We have to discover those things that matter most, those black sheep values that actually allow us to become the original that we were supposed to be, to become these conscious creators. You see, I believe we all have a flock of 5. I believe we all have a flock of 5 black sheep values that make us who we are. They are our non-negotiables. My black sheep values: creativity, hope, impact, empathy, family, authenticity. Hold up, nerds. I know that's 6. I know it's 6. I'm a rock star. We do everything to excess. I couldn't fit mine into the flock of 5. The truth is we all have at least usually one more or one less than 5, but we like to stick in the middle there for the most part. So my 6: creativity, hope, impact, empathy, family, authenticity. Every decision I make in my life gets filtered through those 6 things. If the choices I make are going to honor my black sheep values, the answer is always yes. If they violate those black sheep values, my answer is no. So why does that matter? When you are designing, what are you doing? How are you engaging with the things that matter most to you? That's the real question. If you don't know what those black sheep values are, I don't understand how you could do anything on purpose. Because our purpose is born from those black sheep values. That's what it is. You see, our purpose comes from the activation of those black sheep values. And that's what makes it incredibly powerful, because all of a sudden what matters most to us is in alignment with what we say is our purpose, our reason for being. So we have our what defined, we have chosen our why, and now all that's left is the how, our mission. You know, a mission is nothing more than a self-imposed task. So if your mission is to do the best design you can possibly do, something completely unique, something original, how can you do that if you don't know what to engage? If you don't know what lens to look through? You know, I see this a lot with photographer friends. If you tell me that empathy is one of your black sheep values, I should see that in your images. If you tell me that, the environment is one of your black sheep values, as a designer, I better see that in your design. I better be able to look and go, gosh, I know exactly what's important to them because I can see it. I can witness it. And what you're going to find is this: when you have proof, you don't need belief. And when you're working with clients, trying to get them to believe that you can do what they want is much harder than proving you're capable. And when you can prove it by showing them design after design after design that says, look what I'm able to do because I've done the work, because I've dove in and figured out what matters most to me, I'm able to channel that and align it to what matters most to you. That's what makes your designs unique, because they're your unique perspective, because you are looking through and activating those black sheep values. That is really what it's all about. So the idea of this, we want to design on purpose. We all get that. We're going to say it's more than being intentional, right? It's more than being intentional. It's acting with deliberate intention. And the only way to get that is to define our what. Our what are our black sheep values, those non-negotiables, those things that cannot be changed or moved within you. So if that's the case, what we need to do is figure out how to find yours. And that, my friends, is what we are going to do the next time during our next session next week, same bat time, same bat channel. So what I want to do with the remaining time that we have is answer any questions that you might have. What are the questions that you have right now with regards to discovering your black sheep values or doing something on purpose? I want to look at your questions. I want to answer a few of them with the few minutes that we have remaining before I give you a little bit of homework and tell you what's going to happen next week before we do this again. But I have to tell you, when I started to do this in my own life, my whole life transformed. You know, I make my life as a keynote speaker. And for me, when I defined these things and I spoke them into existence, I started to choose when and where my black sheep values appeared. My bookings doubled, my fee tripled. I got named one of the top 10 motivational speakers in the country. And at first I was like, gosh, how did I get on that list? But then I was like, well, wait a minute. I am one of the fraction of a fraction of a fraction of a percent of people that actually knows their purpose. And I'm living in alignment with that. I'm activating my black sheep values. I am choosing when and where they appear. And because of that, it's powerful. It's powerful. And is that not what you want your designs to be? You want them to be powerful. That comes from in you, from discovering those non-negotiables. Don't let the 10,000 things that are important to you cloud the 5 or 6 that are non-negotiables. That's what we're going to talk about next week. What can I answer for you in the few minutes that we've got left? I would love to. Gosh, we got a lot of people on here right now. I love it. I see we've got them from all over the country right now, even outside of the country right now, which is fantastic. But I would love to know from you, what are your thoughts on designing on purpose? Perhaps you could leave those in the comments. I think that would be great. The other thing I'm going to tell you is this. I am going to put a link in the comments to a worksheet that looks like this. It's your core values worksheet. And it's got all the instructions right on it, but it's a surface dive to start to get you to understand what your black sheep values are. It's about 125 commonly held core values. And you're going to start to look through them. You're going to circle all the ones that really resonate with you, and you're going to start to funnel them down and funnel them down and funnel them down until you get to your arbitrary or your first go at what your flock of 5 would be. I'm going to put that in the comments to make sure that you can download it. Perhaps we can email it to you as well. I'll get with my Milliken friends and see if we can't do that for you too. But the idea here is to get you started so that next week we can really dive deeper and help you start. Can we make good use of the time that we have right now? Has there ever been a time like this in history where you've been forced into sort of working on yourself with the time that we all have sort of in isolation here with social distancing and everything else that's happening? Let's use this time to the best of our ability. So when we come out of this, when things go back to whatever the new normal is going to be, that we start to live our lives on purpose and start to have that level of impact on the people that we love in the world around us. Gosh, that would be such an amazing use of our time right now. I see a couple questions right here. Annette says this, how do you do that as an employee and if your company doesn't operate that way? So interesting enough, Annette, it's really not about the company, it's about you and how you choose to respond to things. So in order for you to do anything on purpose at work, you have to know what your flock of 5 looks like. And when you do, then you can start to address the organizational values of your company and know how to engage with them based on what matters most to you. So if you told me that one of your organizational values was transparency, I would look at mine and go, okay, how can I get creative with transparency? How can I bring hope through transparency? I have to look at all of my black sheep values to know how to engage with what matters most to the organization. If I do that, then I am giving 100% authentic, original input. I am being innovative because I'm the only one who has these values. So the idea is that's how we do it. We start with ourselves and then we start to push outwards to what matters most to the organization. Let's see, I have another one here. How do you pinpoint specific that we need to be? Creativity equals music, art, design. Do you just label it as creativity? Yeah. So the question is, what What's creative for you might not be creative for me. So it has to be what you determine or how you define that word. So creativity for me might be grabbing my guitar and playing a song. Creativity for me might be, writing another book. Creativity for me might simply be coming up with a innovative, unique solution to whatever problem I'm currently facing. Right? How do I find more toilet paper right now when everybody and their mother is out hoarding it, right? That would be a creative solution. I have to figure out how to do that. So the idea is with each one of these values, it's how you define them, because at the end of the day, that's all that matters is how you define them. So if you can start to align yourself with those things and start to choose your actions through them, what happens is you start to feel fulfilled. And I think for all of us, a life of fulfillment has got to be the ultimate goal. Now, how you define fulfillment is going to change, because maybe for you, it was that promotion. Maybe for you, it was that signature design that everybody now knows about. Maybe for you, it was to be this, that, or the other thing. But I have to tell you, the way that you're going to end up defining fulfillment is living a life in alignment with your black sheep values. Because at the end of the day, that's really all you have control over. And so that is what matters most and why we want to discover them. Let's see if we got another one here. Another interesting one. Are your work life and personal life values the same? So what I'm going to say is yes, that your values are your values. Your flock of five is your flock of five no matter what. However, your behavior surrounding those values might differ from home to work. Okay. Don't confuse behavior with values, because a lot of people do. Whenever I'm upset with somebody, I have to try to separate the behavior from the person, because I don't know about you, but we all get wrapped up in that hot mess that we like to watch with Tiger King. And so our behavior can sometimes outpace our ability to see somebody's value. And that's really what's important here. So your values, those black sheep values are the same no matter where. How you engage them at work and how you engage them at home are going to be completely different, because every opportunity you have, whether that's at home or at work, is a new opportunity. And so which of the black sheep values you choose to feed is going to be up to you, because you don't have to use them all the time, but you should be using at least one or two in every single opportunity you have, every single interaction, every single communication, because then you are actually living your life on purpose. And that's the goal. What else do we have here? Okay. Phil says this. How do we begin to define our black sheep values, and how do we test them to make sure that they don't just sound good or feel good in the moment? Okay, great question, because that's what we're going to talk about next week. Next week, we're going to talk about how you discover yours, how you prove they're real, and then what do you do? I can't thank you enough. Listen, I want to say a huge thanks to Jim McCallum, Matt Cooper, all the people at Milliken who really have had the business foresight to do something like this, especially during this time. It's not just about what you just saw right there. It's not just lip service, right? It's about speaking those values into existence. And I know from my work with Milliken, two of the biggest values they have is courage and collaboration. And so if courage and collaboration are two of those black sheep values for the organization, they are living that out by doing stuff like this that really sows in well beyond their internal community and really starts to flow out to the external community for anybody who might need this right now. And I don't know about you, but with however many weeks of isolation that we have had and are going to face, if you don't define those things that matter most to you in your life, it is going to be a long, long road. But when you start to understand your black sheep values, you can tune out all of those other things that become a distraction and only focus on the things that are going to make you fulfilled. So I am super excited to be with you next week. Until then, remember, I will put that link in the comments so that you can download the Black Sheep Values worksheet. We will email it as well. I just saw that in the comments too, to make sure you get your hands on it. And anything else that I can do for you, don't hesitate to reach out. It's just at Brant Menswar on any social platform you could possibly imagine. I'm happy to help. I am here to help. And next week, we're going to talk about how to discover yours and prove that they're real. So until next time, my friends, peace out. Na, 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 na.